Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be analyzing episode 2 of Meghan Markle's show with Love Meghan. And remember, on my channel for episode by episode recaps, we are taking a look at this series from the perspective of a home cook and like a homemaker sort of a vibe, trying to see from a more objective point of view whether she's really delivering any value, whether this really suits the genre and this sort of content well, if Meghan is well suited to it and things like that, because I think that that's a little bit more constructive than just looking at the where it's lacking, because even something that's not delivered great can sometimes still have a neat idea. So far, we haven't had any neat ideas, but you never know. So episode 2's theme is a garden party, specifically a kid's garden party. And she includes a balloon tutorial, which we didn't need, an under-seasoned frittata, messy cutout sandwiches, and a fruit rainbow. Ingenious. The guest is Mindy Kaling, who did join her for an Archetypes episode, but it seems like they don't talk too much other than that. Maybe Meghan claims that they are email pen pals, but the sense of familiarity really isn't there between these two throughout the episode. So they obviously don't know each other that well, but every episode evidently is going to include something that decidedly does not need a tutorial, that we really don't need to see someone showing us how to make it. Like, it's so common sense, we don't really need this tutorial. Episode 1 was popping popcorn and putting pretzels into a bag, okay? We don't need a tutorial on that. Not at all. In this episode, it's a balloon arch. Again, we don't need a tutorial on a balloon arch. Not at all. It's incredibly unnecessary, and therefore it's boring and annoying to the viewer. The opening of this episode is Meghan Markle picking blackberries. She says, "I have a lot of blackberries," but it's not her garden, right? This is part of the problem with the show in general, that it's not actually her space, but yet she's pretending like it is and talks like it is, but we all know that it's not her space, which makes it very confusing for the viewer, and it adds to that inauthentic feeling as well, because it's like, why are you trying to lie to us? Additionally, these sorts of inconsistencies or confusing moments really pull us out of the moment. It immediately yanks you right out of the moment, right out of those carefully filmed shots. They're just lost on this confusion that she adds to it. But another possibility is that she did film some of these shots, these garden shots, on her property, and they are her blackberry bushes, in which case she should have clarified. Let's go down to my garden because I have all these blackberries I want to use. And because she doesn't clarify, we're left confused. Whose garden is it? Whose berries are they? What is happening? Then the Meg puts in a post-production voiceover announcing that it's going to be a tea party theme. She says, "I'm going to share some tips and tricks with Mindy." This is a problem. To announce it in such a manner automatically discounts Mindy's own experience and knowledge. Meghan assuming that she does have tips and tricks to share with Mindy or show Mindy that Mindy doesn't know, rather than saying something like, "We're going to put together a tea party or a kids' tea party because a theme makes an event, no matter how big or small, feel special," or to use Meghan's favorite word, elevated. Then she's not making it sound condescending in any way towards Mindy. It's not so ego-driven, and it is more like an invitation to join in this concept, because then she could expand on the fact of why she thinks themes are important or how she chooses themes. It would have given her a lot more room to work with the content and the concept of the show to take that approach instead of just like, "I'm going to show Mindy a thing or two." But on the subject of themes, it does help out. It does make something feel more special. A theme is a great place to start and can inspire you and make it more fun and make it more engaging for the guests and more of a sensory experience for the guests, of course. So I fully support the idea of, leaning into a theme or incorporating themes even for more regular, mundane, weekly things, just to make it a little bit more fun, or try to get a snack or something that matches it. Those sorts of things kids do really enjoy, and it does feel a little bit more special, or with your spouse. Go the extra mile. That's great. I think that's fabulous. But the way she talked about it and framed it here is like, I'm going to show Mindy what's up because she definitely doesn't know nothing about this. Mindy has 3 kids and is also rich, so I'm sure she's done at least some of these types of things before. It was a little off-putting how Meghan introduced the show, and it did feel a little condescending towards Mindy, and you get the sense that Meg feels superior to Mindy throughout the whole episode, which we'll get to at the end of today's video. Meghan says that she realized she had nothing to feed Mindy, but she knew Mindy was coming, so which is it? If you're a procrastinator, Meg, then just own it. Say so. That would be relatable. Be like, I am a little bit of a procrastinator, so let's make something real quick this morning before Mindy gets here. That would be an opportunity to come across a little bit more relatable, but it wouldn't be perfect. And it seems the more she says it's not about perfection, the more it actually really is. So as she's making a frittata and some bacon for Mindy and some yogurt parfaits, she's talking about how fast mornings go since you've got to get the kids to school. But her kids are 3 and 5. Is her 3-year-old in school? Like, I guess preschool. But once Mindy arrives, she shows Mindy the food, corrects her pronunciation of the cookware, and says, while it was cooking, I made parfaits! And she's very pleased with herself here. It's incredibly self-indulgent, but Mindy dutifully feigns surprise and acts like it's a magnificent feat that the Meg prepared this stuff. Next, Mindy launches into asking the Meg whether the 50 preserves from last year's American Riviera Orchard Montecito nonsense were ranked or not, because remember, she numbered the jams from 1 to 50. And this is where this rumor of a script actually seems to have some merit, okay? Allegedly, the Meg sent the guests some talking points before they showed up that included things like specific prompts of what to ask Meghan or some things to say, as well as suggested responses. Meg here is clapping back that the numbered jams had the valid critique that it was not necessarily wise to do that because it can be perceived as ranking your friends and as a sort of toxic idea to number the jams because, it can be interpreted as you're sort of prioritizing certain people. So, of course, Meghan says no, they weren't. It wasn't a ranking system. But there's no reason for Mindy to bring that up besides it being requested, obviously. This was very strange. And very obvious clapping back, not stealthily, sneakily, sort of slipping it in a way that's less noticeable, which would be smarter. It's just kind of foolishly obvious. Let's put it that way. In this episode, the flower sprinkles get a lot of airtime, and they're not flower sprinkles. They are dried edible flowers. Not great. I'm sorry, they made everything look messy. They don't belong on frittatas or parfaits. Imagine that texture. Ugh, it would be horrible. She says, your kids will like this. Excuse me? No, they won't. Kids hardly like parsley or other garnish on top of their food. They certainly don't want dead flowers, okay? Some kids would be like, ugh! Get it off. But the nonsense continues. After Mindy tastes the parfait, this is so peculiar, the way Mindy says these things, which makes me believe this rumor of the script. Because Mindy says to Meghan, how did you salt this so perfectly? And Meghan says that she undersalts because Harry salts everything. So she didn't salt it perfectly? I'm confused. Also, she didn't really answer the question, and I saw no salt being used while she was cooking this frittata. So there is no salt in it. So how is it salted perfectly, Mindy? What's happening? Script. Probably. Next, they make bellinis, and Mindy says that it's the earliest she's had alcohol in a long time, and Meghan sounds surprised and says, well, welcome to Montecito. How pompous and Stepfordy. And I also think it's a little bit of a risk to include breakfast cocktails here, of which they make several. They get refills on their cocktails throughout this episode. It's a little bit of an odd choice, quite frankly. And I don't think it served the episode well, and I don't think it serves Meghan very well here with everything going on and the context of this all. It's just not the best look. Contradicting some of her previous statements of eating farm to table growing up and having a privileged upbringing in many ways. In episode 2, she says that she ate TV dinners and fast food growing up, of which Mindy says, oh, me too. So they're conversing about this while they're making cutout sandwiches. Let's talk about the sandwiches first. They are taking the bread, putting cream cheese or peanut butter or jam on the bread, and then using a cutout. And then they're taking the cutout shape, putting some filling like cucumbers or whatever else, and then putting another cutout piece of bread on top. This is the wrong way to make a cutout sandwich. It's incredibly messy, and it was really hard to watch. It all ended up looking quite gross, incredibly messy, especially after putting the flour sprinkles on there. This looked like an absolute train wreck. The correct way to make cutout sandwiches is to build the entire sandwich with both pieces of bread and all the filling all assembled, and then use your cookie cutter, because then the sides are cleaner and it's easier to get a perfect shape, and you don't have things hanging off, and you don't have a bunch of cream cheese on the edge of your cutout for the next one. It's just 100% the proper way to go about it, is to build the whole sandwich first, then use a cutout to get the cutout sandwiches. So this was crazy. It's as if neither of them have ever done this before. But then Meghan, the premise here is that Meghan is teaching Mindy how to do these things, but she clearly doesn't even know how to do it herself. Really drove me crazy. I make cutout sandwiches all of the time. Never, ever, ever would I ever do it this way. How would you even get the piece of bread with peanut butter on top of it out of the cookie cutter? The peanut butter is going to make it stick. This was the messiest piece of nonsense I've seen so far. But as they're talking about what kinds of fast food they ate growing up, Mindy says no one will believe that Meghan Markle eats Jack in the Box. And Meghan says, it's so funny that you keep saying Meghan Markle because you know I'm a Sussex now. What? What is happening? That's not only incorrect, this is just, as I've said before, a I prefer to go by type situation, and therefore not worth doing this, not worth sacrificing the, awkwardness of the situation. But it's also rude, straight up rude the way Meghan went about it. And it's just not important enough to do to a friend like this on TV. A friend, an alleged friend. And it's not funny. She says, it's so funny that you keep saying Meghan Markle. How is that funny? Is that funny? Is anyone laughing here? No. Ridiculous. There's really no excuse for leaving this in. This should have been cut. 100%, this should have been cut from the series. Leaving it in had the only reason why I could think that this got left in was because Meghan thought it was valuable, that it would help her rebrand as a way to announce that she wants to be known as Meghan Sussex. But it hasn't worked. It's only revealed her rudeness. And you can tell they edit this a lot. They cut this a lot. It's a very choppy part of the episode. And you can kind of tell that Mindy feels awkward after this. Like, it's on her face, which is unfortunate. After these messy sandwiches, more unnecessary nonsense is brought to us. Meghan makes gift bags for the kids who are not attending. No one attends this garden party. This is just like a sample situation of her doing it for the show. Mindy has 3 kids. Meghan has 2 kids. Why didn't they, at the end, at least say that they were going to have the kids over for a play date and use this stuff and actually put it to use? Beyond me. But she chooses a gardening theme for the goodie bags, for the party favor bags, for the non-existent party and the non-existent kids that are not showing up to this thing. That includes mini gardening tools, seeds, and signs, all written in her terrible cursive that these kids have 0 chance of reading. Now, even if Meghan didn't expect or plan on the kids actually reading the seed packets or the little signs to show what you planted where, even if she thought, well, the moms are going to do the reading, it's better for children to have it in print because that will help them with their literacy development. even just seeing words clearly printed at their level, their eye level, and on their stuff is helpful in developing their letter recognition and their reading and their literacy. It's essential, actually. That's why it's a good thing to do, to put labels on like the doors and the rooms and the cupboards in the house, and even on furniture at eye level for your toddlers, even before they're able to read, that says like couch, table, bedroom door. These types of things really, really help them with letter recognition and reading. It's a really, really good thing for them to be able to see this and to be able to recognize those letters. So Meghan using this sort of spindly cursive writing that's impossible for the children to read is kind of inconsiderate to the kids and just shows that she didn't think it through. And it also shows me that she made these for the moms. Like if we're going on this is a party situation, what she would do for a kid's party, then this is all for the moms to try to impress the other moms or one up the other moms. Or it's pretentious, it's impractical, and it's definitely not for the kids. I do think that seeds is a cute idea because kids do like to see things grow, and even just wildflower seeds to just spread around, is helpful for bees and cute thing to do, and kids love that type of stuff. But I do think that she should have included something else in the bag that kids would actually be genuinely a little bit more excited about than just seeds, a stake, and gardening tools. Oh, and there was a honey stick. A lot of kids don't like the taste of honey. Like, they'll like it on stuff, but they don't like the taste of honey. I think she would have been better suited to include maybe like a cute container and let them take some of that fruit rainbow that she's about to make in the container and take home some fruit at least. At least they'd have something to eat that they might like. Like, I don't know. This was just a little bit lame, like the rest of the show. And then, on top of it all, she explains the goodie bags a second time at the end of the episode to Mindy's face. So she makes the goodie bags by herself, and then she explains them to Mindy. So we hear about the goodie bags twice. They're not exciting enough to hear about once, let alone twice. But the whole thing just felt a little dull. Next, she and Mindy make crostini without brushing olive oil on it first, which is fine. It does add a lot of flavor to brush with olive oil first. But then they place goat cheese and edible flowers on it. Now, while these came out looking kind of cute, like Mindy made a dragonfly one or a butterfly one, kids will not eat this. They are not going to be eating edible flowers placed on crostini with goat cheese. Crostini itself is kind of got a crunch to it. It's got a strong crust to it, at least it should. That's even hard for kids to bite into, let alone looking appealing. So again, it's not for the kids, but it's supposed to be a kids' garden party. So bizarre. They also make ladybug crostini, and she acts like it's a big deal that it's ladybird in the UK and ladybug in the United States. She acts like this is something blowing her mind and so fabulous to share, as if it's not common knowledge to everyone. Again, super strange. She's done this previously where she was at an event with Harry in the UK back when they were working royals, and she went on and on with somebody over laughing in a really false way about how she calls it a Band-Aid and he calls it a plaster. Oh, how entertaining. Not. Then they arranged fruit in a rainbow shape. Revolutionary. It looks lovely in theory, but for adults, not for kids, because kids are going to get their grubby little fingers over everything. They're going to mess up the rainbow immediately. She sprinkled edible flowers on this fruit that's juicy. So they're going to get soggy and they look messy. They look like something accidentally blew onto the platter of fruit, not that it's supposed to be there. It's so bizarre. Now, I think the idea of putting fruit into cute shapes is great and can be really, really fun for kids. Even just making a happy face out of something on their plate can make them feel like, oh, that's kind of fun and a little bit inviting to them, because getting kids to eat things can sometimes be a challenge. But it would have been better if she showed a few different ways and methods of doing this. I think that would have been more valuable than spending so much time on the fruit rainbow and then making a mini fruit rainbow and then doing the crostinis that children are not going to eat. Like 100% kids are not going to eat a crostini with a tomato and an olive and balsamic vinegar on it. They're just not. And basil. Adults might, but you're supposed to be making stuff for a kid's party. So this doesn't line up. Where I could see the edible flowers looking okay would be maybe on the plate with, say, like cookies or cupcakes or treats or, you know, even crostini, anything on top of it. Something not wet though, because if you place something wet on top of it, like fruit or vegetables, then the edible flowers are going to get soggy, because these are dried edible flowers that she uses. So you have to be very careful about where you use that. Mindy tried really hard throughout this episode to move it along, to make good conversation. She really did. She asked Meghan if it was scary moving to Canada for Suits, for work. I guess the closest she gets to really answering that question is saying that she met some people at the dog park or something like that. And then Mindy says, well, I'm such an introvert, that would seem really scary for me. And the Meg fails to talk about it more or to ask her about her experience on a TV show, because this whole thing starts with them saying that they have something in common, that they were both on a TV show for several seasons. Mindy was on her show for, I think, 8 seasons and Meghan for 7 seasons. So maybe that's why Meghan dropped the line of conversation, because Mindy had 1 year more. I don't know. But Meghan kind of abandoned it quickly. Throughout this episode, there wasn't much value delivered. There wasn't much that actually made sense for the premise of the show. But something that stood out was this one, the music really kind of spun out of control here. It's very disjointed. There's a different tiny little snippet of a different song every time they do play music. It's like this tiny little clip of some random song plugged in there that's not connected to the moment hardly at all. Sometimes loosely connected by having like a lyric that somehow ties to the moment. But that's not how music design should work. Because this feels incredibly chaotic, and it's quite frankly rather unpleasant because it doesn't fit with the tone or the theme of the moment. Part of that is because the show itself is very boring. Like, this is all so bland and boring and plodding along. So it's kind of like, whoa, oh my gosh, you're jumping into the middle of a chorus of an upbeat song out of nowhere. It feels like they're trying to force a vibe that isn't happening. And it feels out of place. And it also, like I said, felt a lot more like it was about impressing or trying to show up other moms that'll be attending the party or something like that, rather than making something that's actually fun and whimsical and practical for little kids. Because like almost none of it would make sense for little kids. She even had like nice glass china, like nice teacups and plates. That's not what you would use for a little kid's party because, you know, 3, 5, 6, 7-year-olds might break it. So you wouldn't want to use a bunch of glass, even for that. So the whole thing was kind of bizarre. I think it would have made more sense if she said that we're going to do a garden tea party for us, a mom's day off, or something like that. That maybe would have made more sense and would have suited the actual stuff that she made and did, except for maybe the goodie bags and the balloon arch don't really fit in with that. But the food that they made and stuff like that was very much more geared towards moms. And they made bellinis, and the entire decor of the situation was just, you know, very more adult themed. But anyway, towards the end of the episode, bizarrely, they just return in dresses, leaving us to wonder, is this an entirely different day? Did you bring dresses? Why did you bring dresses? What is happening? And of course, that leads us to wonder, why are they not having the kids come to enjoy their efforts? It's so strange. Because they said that this is about throwing a kid's party. So the whole thing just felt really weird. Mindy was most certainly the absolute best guest that Meghan could have asked for. Mindy kept asking the Meg detailed questions that were set up in a particular way. A little suspicious, you know, like I said, mayhaps that's true that they did kind of try to script to some extent, had a loose script, because that really would make sense for the way this stuff went in this episode. Mindy did reveal that she was an introvert, and so I started to feel bad for Mindy that she kind of got steamrolled by the Meg. It felt like she kind of got used by the Meg. That dynamic was a little bit hard to watch. It felt like Mindy was really trying to bring a lot to the table for Meghan, and Meghan just kept taking and then kind of disrespecting Mindy, quite frankly. Every time Mindy said something about herself or her childhood, like she said that she liked to bake as a kid. She said that she loves using mint in her Indian food that she cooks. So why didn't the Meg ask more about this? Anything. Something. None of that was asked. And it felt kind of sad because Mindy had something to offer there to the conversation, and Meghan just was like, nope, back to me. So that was kind of sad. I felt bad for Mindy. At the very end, in what was meant to be sort of a blooper, I guess, they included a cut scene that didn't make it into the episode of them trying to do a daisy chain, and Mindy's just like over it. She's not even trying. She gives up immediately, and they quit. But it didn't come across as funny. It didn't come across as lighthearted. It was just kind of odd. Like another failed idea got revealed at the end, sort of, because Mindy's vibe is kind of is done. She's done. Overall, episode 2 was a little bit hard of a watch, and it seems like the challenges that we saw emerge in the first episode are only growing from here. Did I get anything from it as a homemaker, as a mom, as a home cook? No, actually nothing. Nothing in this was valuable to me at all, and in fact they were bad ideas for a kids party, most of them. So it was a rough one. I'll be back with more super soon. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye.